Hi. So, I'm gonna make a video before I have to go get toilet paper. Funny story, my 6-year-old is very clean. She likes to wash her hands a lot, which is great. But she has this thing where if the towels don't get her hands dry enough, you know how like they're like a little sticky after, they're not quite totally dry? She can't handle it. Tried to show her there's, paper towel. You could just keep drying your hands. They would actually come dry. Takes too long. So she uses toilet paper. At least she puts it in the garbage, but it's kind of expensive. We're working on it. Anyways, she's 6. At least she washes her hands, right? But anyways, I have to go to the store because I'm out of toilet paper. Kind of dangerous. I need to do that before the kids wake up. Anyways, I want to talk to you guys about something that I was just watching. It made me realize that I perceived something quite differently now than I would have, say, 10 years ago. Part of it is just maturity. Part of it is emotional awareness, being able to regulate myself better. But a lot of it has to do with self-awareness. So a lot of the issues that I would have had prior in relationships, came from taking things personal that, let's be honest, aren't personal, right? I mean, we interrupt somebody mid-thought or mid-task. They're in the middle of doing something and we don't get the exact response we were hoping for because maybe they're thinking about something else while they're doing it, right? Maybe they're thinking about a work problem, or maybe they're thinking about how much their back hurts, or we have no idea. So sometimes when we interrupt people, they get pissy or they don't react, right? And a lot of the times, especially young couples who haven't had a lot of experience with each other, or maybe experience with understanding that it's not about them, because really it's not about you, right? When you interrupt the person, it's nothing to do with you, how they react initially. Their first initial reaction is always about them. If they are able to break away from what they're doing and focus on you, then you'll be able to tell, right, if they actually engage or not. But for me now, it's not about that, because I would actually feel bad interrupting somebody doing something unless I knew they wanted me to interrupt them, or that it was okay to interrupt them, or that the purpose was greater than their current task. And it's because I don't need them to make me feel a certain way. Usually when we're interrupting somebody and we react poorly, it's because we were seeking some sort of validation or some sense of security. And there's a big narrative out there right now between masculine and feminine, and that you need to find your masculine partner to feel safe. There is definitely a sense of security being in a relationship, but it doesn't have to necessarily be romantic, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a man and a woman or a masculine and a feminine. It's being in a relationship where you know that person has your back. You guys ever, I forget what the study's called, I gotta find it, but they did like this 75-year study. It went through 4 different generations of researchers trying to research. I watched this on a TED Talk, and then I got the book. Anyway, I got the book, it was cool. Anyways, they did this study about what made people happy, like what made them have a good life. 75-year study, 4 different teams of researchers, right, that this went through. They followed people from childhood up until like 80s, okay? And all walks of life, right? And there was no real rhyme or reason. Some people who had prestigious upbringings ended up homeless and with addiction problems, while other people who grew up in the ghetto with every odd against them ended up becoming CEOs. Like, there was the only rhyme or reason, the only thing that seemed to affect it wasn't their job, it wasn't their state of living, it wasn't any of that. The only thing that seemed to truly affect if they felt they'd had a good life, a happy life, is if they'd had a partner that they knew no matter what had their back. It didn't matter how much they fought. The one guy, he was actually talking about this couple he went to go visit, and they were in their 80s, right? And they'd been married since like the 40s or something. I forget what he said. And they bickered and they fought like cats and dogs, like all the time. But when he actually sat down and started interviewing them, the man said, it doesn't matter if she wants to spit in my coffee. If I called her and said, hey, honey, I need you, she's always there. She's always there for me, and I never doubt that she's there. Not one bit. That's the kind of relationship we need with our fellow humans, is the connections, knowing that some people in our lives always have our back. So these narratives about masculine and feminine in relationships, and that a woman can't feel safe without her husband or masculine, these are traps making you seek, again, validation and comfort outside of yourself. Yes, relationships, human connection are utterly essential for playing this game, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic partner. It just has to be a connection that is sincere and genuine and doesn't hold the other person accountable for how you're feeling, because it's not their job to make you happy, sad, or anything else, just like it's not your job for them. We are grown-ups. As children, we're learning, but as grown-ups, it's our job to be responsible for ourselves, and how we feel is our responsibility. I know, it sucks. You can't just say, well, she made me feel that way. Did she? Or is your view of what she did making you feel that way? What if you chose to see it differently? I've been really stuck right lately on this whole momentum thing, right, with Abraham Hicks, because she always talks about Abraham, and she's so right. When you have momentum going one direction, so say you've been going in a negative thought pattern for decades, switching to a positive one ain't gonna work. She did the example of somebody who was sitting on the couch, kind of like, depressed, not feeling so great. The idea of somebody upbeat and bubbly, right? Like, yeah, I was so happy to see you. You're gonna feel great. Just stop thinking those shitty thoughts and you'll be so happy. Yeah, it's like, if I had control, it's like, no, because she said, if you're in charge of your reality and someone comes to you like that and says, all you have to do is think happy thoughts and you can fix your reality, the person's going to say, if I could fix my reality, you wouldn't be here right now. She's on point, right? So it's the momentum that you have to slow down. So sometimes you have to stop and just think of a thought that isn't quite as bad as the last thought, right? Always pick the best feeling in the moment that you can. It's not necessarily going to be an epic feeling, depending on the situation, but always pick the best one. And then I started thinking about, because Sleeping Beauty was my all-time favorite Disney movie as a kid. I literally watched that VHS tape until it got I wrecked that thing. It's too bad anyways. But because when you look at the curse part, right, when Maleficent cursed the princess, the fairy couldn't change the full momentum to such an extreme that it was gone. But what she could do was change its direction to one that was close to it, but not as bad as it. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. So often we try, even like when I was coaching people with gut health and coaching people through, their other mental health issues that went along with not feeling good about themselves because of their gut health and their physical ailments, it was always, shocking to me how people expected so much of themselves and they were so unforgiving of themselves. You have to start with little steps, right? The babies don't normally just get up and start running. It's usually a process. So just like anything, right? With gut health, I'd say just start with one thing. How about this week you just cut out pop? Focus on that. Once you've mastered that, let's move on to something else. Because sometimes that's all we got, is the ability to do one thing. So if you are out there and you think that you need a man or a woman to complete you, you don't. You do need connections. You do need relationships, family, friends, however that works out for you. But just know that it gets better and easier to have relationships the more self-aware you become. So the more you're willing to face why things upset you, why things make you angry, sad, happy, the more you start to understand how you're affected by stuff, the easier it's going to be for you to regulate. And to understand that all people's reactions is always about them. It's never about you. It really isn't. We have to stop taking things so personally and just put yourself in their shoes, right? Like, you'll get there. I'm working on it too. So anyways, have a great day. Okay, bye.